My name is Kelly Wood, and I am part of the Corporate Education Partnerships team here at UAGC. This is my first year participating as a session host with TLC, so really excited to be a part of this great endeavor that our university hosts for free to all learners and participants each year. And really happy that you joined us for today's terrific session, Female Students in Open Access Higher Education, How Can We Support? This is going to be presented by our esteemed faculty, Dr. Hazar, Shehadeh, and Dr. Tanya Mooney. I'd also just like to acknowledge our tech host, Stephanie Tweedy, who has made all of this possible for us today and given us this great forum. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with your TLC-related materials once that recording is reviewed in a week or so. Microphones will be muted during the presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat as we expect to have about 5 to 10 minutes to address your questions. So please use the chat to post your questions. We've also enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, just click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. So I am pleased now to introduce you to our two esteemed presenters, both whom are instructors within the School of General Studies here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. As I mentioned, Dr. Shehadeh is Associate Professor in the School of General Studies Academic Engagement Center. She also serves as a member of UAGC's Live Learning Leadership Team. Dr. Shehadeh has been supporting undergrad and graduate learners as an instructor for more than a decade, teaching English, ESL, film criticism, linguistics, literature, and humanities courses. She has served in and led different committees to review, revise, and design curricula, and has also developed and reviewed online and hybrid courses for different institutions. Her research has focused on improving minority students' academic performance and examining different instructional methods to increase student academic achievement and retention. Dr. Tanya Mooney is also core faculty and assistant professor of our School of General Studies. She started her career in the United States Air Force, where she served 12 years before entering the education profession in 2005. Since then, her extensive background in education includes teaching courses in information literacy, early childhood and elementary education, educational psychology for undergrad and graduate learners since 2008. Dr. Mooney has also developed and reviewed educational programs. She has created curriculum and contributed to textbooks, grants, and has reviewed program-led accreditation efforts. She has also served as a school principal. In addition, she has presented at both national and international conferences and seeks to continually improve her teaching practice. From both of those introductions, I think you can understand how these two women have an incredible amount of experience, and we're very excited to hear them present. Thank you both for your work and passion as educators. Dr. Mooney, I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Kelly. And yes, thank you, Stephanie, for helping us pull this off today. And I would like to get started just by reviewing what open access is. If any of you attended the first session with Paul Pastrick and yesterday the plenary session, they have done an amazing job of really emphasizing what open access universities are. However, as we start today, there might be some of you who are not able to attend those sessions. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page and have an understanding of what these open access universities are. So in open access or open enrollment schools, we remove the admissions barrier and we open the opportunity for all people to work towards a college degrees. So things such as testing scores like ACT, SAT, they don't dictate whether or not a student can attend. So as we frame today's presentation, I want you to keep in mind our intentional focus is on open access institutions and the populations that we serve. Since open access removes those barriers for students to enroll, students or schools, universities, we must also consider then how to support these students who may have gaps or special needs or special supports that the traditional student may not have. So for this presentation, we're going to look specifically at the female population and how to support their learning.
So in the past 2 decades, there has been a pattern of student enrollment increase across all colleges and universities in the United States. According to data published in 2019, most of these students come from low economic backgrounds, and they are students of color with dominant presence in public, least selective, and open access institutions, compared to moderately and very selective schools that have students from middle and high income families. Now, if we look closer at the data in the first graph, we see that in open access institutions, minority students enrollment increased from 27% in 1996 to 48% in 2016. And then if we look at the racial and ethnic distribution in the second graph, we see that the increase in minority students is driven by Hispanic enrollment growth. This is because Hispanics is the second largest racial and ethnic group in the overall population in the United States. Now, this growth has been greatest at open access institutions by 15 percentage points from 6% in 1996 to 22% in 2016. Now, if we move on to the next slide, looking at more recent data, we see that over the past 5 years, freshman enrollment fell most sharply by 4.7% at highly selective institutions, 7.6% at very competitive institutions, and 5.4% at competitive institutions. However, the total undergraduate enrollment increased more at least selective or competitive and open access institutions. Another recent report published this year indicated that in 2021, 73% of all post-secondary students attended public institutions. So the conclusion here is that students prefer or opt for less expensive and open access institutions. If we move on to the next slide, another point we look at is female students. The number of female students in higher education has been increasing. Now, the U.S. Census Bureau data in 2014 showed that female students enrolled in higher education after finishing high school at higher rates than male students, with around 76% of females to 62% of male high school graduates. Also, I would like to add that in 2019, reports indicated that women outnumbered men in graduate degree attainment. Now, if we look at the first graph, we see that 39% of women compared to 36.2% of men had completed 4 years or more of college in 2022. This number is up from 3.8% of women in 1940. If we look at the second graph, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, we see that the enrollment of males in post-secondary institutions is projected to increase 3% by 2028, with 8.8 million male students and 3% for female students, but with 11.5 million students. Now, if we narrow down the focus to only online programs, we see that 60% of online students are female students. And this takes me to the next slide. If we focus on only UAGC, which is an open access or open enrollment institution, we see that the data we have discussed align with what we have at our institution. First, according to the most recent data we have about student population, 65% of the students are females. And female students outnumber the male students at the associate, bachelor's, master's, and doctoral levels. I would like to mention that in non-open access schools, admissions can be influenced by gender balancing practices or admissions. But this is not the case in open access institutions because open access does not apply these practices. And this can be viewed as one factor that supports women's attainment at UAGC. Also, if we look at the last pie chart, we see that 50% of our students use Pell Grant, and most of our students are non-white students. And moving on to the next slide, we can say that regardless of the increase in female students enrollment, they are more likely to drop out and face challenges than male students because, cultural or family contexts. Some reports indicated that women are 57% more likely to drop out in their third year and 61% more likely to drop out in their fourth year. Also, we have found that female students may experience lack of support from family members and social networks, societal pressure to fulfill different roles and responsibilities, and financial pressure to provide for their families, especially single mothers. In addition, some first-generation female students may not be aware of the needed time and effort to spend inside and outside of a class to complete assignments. So we can say that they may experience a clash between family members who do not have college experience and may not understand the meaning and expectations of going to college or of being a student. So all of these factors can and do impact female persistence in higher education. And that's why this population female students, they are in need of establishing their identities as college students, future college graduates, and professionals. And we can say that there is a need to understand this population and tailor interventions and plans to help them retain and graduate. And moving on to the next slide. Based on what we have examined in literature, possible interventions and resources to help female students include tutoring, networking, and socialization with peers and faculty. Also, mentorship and one-on-one guidance can help address very specific challenges and issues these female students face and help them make solid career choices. So I can say faculty, peers, and even advisors can offer guidance, support, and motivation to engage these female students in the academic work to succeed and also to persist. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mooney to go over the latest initiative we have at UAGC, which is live learning.
Excellent. Thank you. And before I do, I just want you guys to recall the last two slides that she presented. The gap or the need, the thing that we noticed is in the third and fourth year, our female students are starting to struggle. We're more likely to lose them. And here on this slide, we share some possible ways that the research shows that we can support our female students. So now I get to tell you about live learning because we truly believe it aligns with the research of the needs of our special population of students at an open access university. So these four things, mentorship, tutoring, networking, and socialization with peers and faculty are key. So keep these in mind as I share about our retention initiative here at UAGC. We deem that this support is special support for our female faculty or for our female students, specifically because it does provide the mentorship, the tutoring, the network, and the socialization. Previously, like I said, that was noticed that these are some of the challenges that female students face. So live learning is a retention initiative here at UAGC. It's a synchronous event that allows students to create connections with others in their class or major. At UAGC, there's various courses. I work with the entry point courses, which means one of the first 4 classes they take. And we have this live learning component. Students are required to attend 1 session during a 5-week period, and they usually last about 30 minutes. So they're not super long, but they're essential for connection. Each live learning session focuses on skills that we find successful for a specific course. So example, I teach Gen 103, which is information literacy. And in our course, we found that students struggle to use the UAGC library. Their main research plan when showing up to our class is to use Google. So our live learning component focuses on how to access the library, how to use keyword searches, query scholarly articles, citation tool, and all those fun tools in the library. However, I was part of a UFP research project, and we found that when we collected research from the live learning, our students did report that they gained confidence in these skills. But I want to share with you other findings that we found, that if you can remember to what our challenges and our needs now and see how these align. They were happy with the interactions that they got. They were so thankful for getting real-time question answered and connecting with faculty. They were excited to meet the other live librarians and meet other students that were in their major. Students again shared that they felt more confident and that they wanted to feel more connected. So this was exciting. It aligns with the information shared on these previous slides. And if you recall, females seek mentorship, tutoring, networking, and socialization with peers. Live learning provides this in part, those 4 elements. For example, mentorship happens during live learning when students ask advice, and faculty can authentically connect and provide real-time advice, answers, and tips. Tutoring occurs during the Q&A session at the end of the live learning as students ask questions and the skills are demonstrated for them. They get to network with peers and faculty. It takes place before the session starts. They use the chat all the time prior to it. Faculty encourage students to share their major and connect with someone else during this session network, and hopefully create a buddy system or somebody that they can have an authentic connection with. So let's recall the challenges: lack of support, societal pressures, financial clashes, family members. These are what our students are facing. They strive for that sense of belonging. And live learning is a way to provide these connections, which supports our student female population.
Okay, so to build on what Dr. Mooney mentioned, if we look at the most recent data of live learning attendance and participation, we see that the majority of the students attending these live learning sessions are female students, more than 64% of the students. And if we examine data of these female students only, we see that women of color make the majority of them, of the female students who attend on these sessions, more than 73%. What does this data tell us? It means that minority female students have the highest live learning attendance rate. And this aligns with the nationwide data we discussed about enrollment in open access institutions that is narrowed down to minority female students, which is exactly reflected in our live learning data. I would like to say that we are still assessing this live learning initiative and its impact on students at the Academic Engagement Center at UAGC. But I would like also to mention that we have more questions than answers, as the more Tanya and I analyzed data and examined reports and research studies, the more questions we had. And Tanya, of course, has more to add on this, but let's just take a look at the conclusions and that we arrived at based on the data and research we have examined, and discuss the possible future research topics that may build on the topic we have just discussed.
Thank you. So yes, we can conclude that our females interact and connect in different ways, and so we might need to give them additional support, create those pathways and those opportunities, such as live learning. However, we do have some suggestions for future research, because in our time that we spent looking on this, we kept pinging back and forth. I'm like, Hazar, now I have a question. Why is this happening, or why do you think this is the case? So we're just positing some future research. So we want you to consider, open enrollment in online institutions versus traditional institutions. What is the female population breakdown, and what is the breakdown with these open access universities? We can find online versus traditional, but once you put in open enrollment access, sometimes it's hard to find that data. Also, the gender enrollment in open access online institutions versus the traditional institutions. These are some things that we're left wondering. And I think Hazar I'm a little unclear on this question, but this is one of the biggest questions that kind of came up to us. Why in the world are more females in college than males? Why is this phenomenon happening? And to me, my thought is we need further research on this. One article posited that it might be that with the pay gap, in the gender pay gap, is that a female needs to have a degree to earn the same rate that a male gets for the same job without a degree. So those are some of the things that align with research, but haven't been specifically sought out. So those are our conclusions, our future research, and we want to get to the Q&A. Here is a reference page. I believe these slides are provided on Whova in a day or so. You'll have access to that. So we have all the research that we used, but we really want to open this time now to get some discussion, maybe some things that you all have done and experienced to support your female population, and any other questions that you might have. Again, thank you for today, and I look forward to some discussion now. We intentionally carved it out so we have some extra time.
We have a question from Dr. Pritz, and this is a very solid question. I'm going to answer a different question, and then I'm going to tie it to this question. Now, across the different studies we have examined, some of the main factors that make women, female students, drop out in their third and fourth year are the socioeconomic status and having to work to provide for themselves and their families, the need to be at home with their children and taking care of the household, the need to fill different roles at home, school, and work, and of course, the insufficient support from family, friends, and faculty. Now, this all ties to the cultural values that women are expected to take care of the household. Also, I would like to say that in some studies I reviewed, female students reported that their husbands were a bit threatened by their decision to enroll in college. And also continuing a degree in a specific majors such as science, STEM field, meant delaying the start of a family. So there are different factors, but these are the main ones female students face leading to drop out. Now, an interesting point I found in literature is that female students were less supported than males within their families, by their families, and they found that the institutional support was a very essential factor to their college persistence. And this aligns with the different studies we have reviewed and the live learning data we discussed. So to answer your question, I guess we can extend maybe after live learning beyond the first year. We can even look at different other initiatives that may be effective. But also there is a factor that we cannot control: the family, the cultural, and the economic dimensions of our students. And I hope I made sense.
You did, Hazar, and I'd like to add to that, because I did a study on, it's a volunteer study hall, very much like a live learning, but it just allowed students to come in and ask the questions and then get the connections. Most of the attendees were female. But when I asked if they would attend later, and I'm going back to the question Dr. Pritz asked about if students are struggling or the female population is dropping out at a higher rate in the third and fourth year, wouldn't it make sense to do the live learning in these times? I think it would need to be mandated if we did, because when I asked if students would attend again if they didn't have to, even though they said it was helpful, they said they likely wouldn't. So I wonder if that's also time pressures and things, there's so many things that go into play for this for females, but they say it helps, it say it works, but it seems they only attend if it's required. So it's definitely a unique conversation to attend. Yes, Dr. Abinson, that's it. Study hall was sometimes used as a boundary for their women. So some women would show up and they would say, hey, this study hall is scheduled for this time. I blocked it off on my calendar. I don't have any questions. I just want to sit here because I can tell my kids, stay away. Mom's off limits for the time that I'm in study hall. So it was a very good boundary for their family to realize that, hey, she needs time during that time. So good recollection. Any other questions?
Dr. Mooney and Dr. Shehadeh, I do want to address a question that has been, I think you've covered it a lot already, but this was an earlier question through our WOBA channel. The question was, what unique challenges do female students have in open access higher education, and how can institutions better support them? And I think you have addressed that quite a bit already throughout this presentation. And the slide that you showed, the mentorship, networking, tutoring, and socialization as part of live learning, I thought was a really great example. Are there any other sort of resources or even associations or networking groups for those that are attending today that want to initiate and implement a live learning or some other kind of support service with the institution they're working with?
Hazar, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
Yes, I can comment on that. As I mentioned, live learning is a new initiative, and actually we are still studying its impact. What we know about live learning so far is that it does help student persistence. Live learning, those students who attend the live learning sessions do better than other students who do not attend these sessions with regard to successful course completion. I'm talking here about the pass rate. And across all of our courses that have live learning sessions, on average, live learning users had higher GPAs than non-users. And also, live learning users are more likely to complete the course and move on to the next course than non-users. So all of this data, it seems very promising, but as I mentioned, it's still a new initiative, and we need to examine its impact on the learning outcomes, and we need to examine to ask the students why female students attend these sessions rather than male students. And I guess this ties to what Dr. Mooney mentioned, is that female students in general, I believe it's their nature to the need to connect with peers, the need to connect with faculty. But other colleagues can expand and can actually build on the live learning initiative to tie it to other initiatives involving more faculty and more advisors to direct these students. And Tanya, if you want to add to that.
I'd love to, but I see that our time is up. So I just want to make sure if there's any other questions, or if we need to, what do you think, Kelly? Do we need to wrap it up?
We do. And I just want to say thank you. I thought your comment, Dr. Mooney, mentioning that outside of live learning, here at UAGC, we offer other resources like CHAMPS and all sorts of student groups that students can get engaged in. And we have a really great career services team that provides additional resources. All of it together, I know, will help our students retain and be successful. So on that note, thank you so much, both of you. This has been very informational. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Stephanie will drop a survey link that we appreciate you taking the time to respond to. That information and feedback will help us all. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day and Veterans Day ahead. Thank you, Dr. Mooney, for your service. I hope you enjoy Veterans Day tomorrow.
We've got some fun stuff planned. It's called rest.
Yeah, that sounds great. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.